Hey, Summerhill Cinema 700 here. Thanks for joining me on my third video review for my Countdown to Halloween series. I just thought, I hadn't even thought about that before after I'd made the two videos, though, of the horror movie reviews in October. I thought, well, this is the third one. I've been doing quite a few reviews lately, so let's just call this the Countdown to Halloween, and this is the third video. First I did Maniac Cop, then I did, yesterday I did Eaten Alive. Now we're doing the 1980 super freaky ghost movie, paranormal thriller, The Changeling. And I had never seen this movie before, like I hadn't seen Eaten Alive or Maniac Cop. And this was really cool. We're going to be talking about the movie and then also about the Blu Ray here from Severin Films. So let's just get right into the movie right away here. Basically, I had heard all this hype about the movie, about how it was like the scariest paranormal movie of all time, and apparently Martin Scorsese said it was the scariest movie he ever saw, or the scariest ghost movie he ever saw. And some of that may be true. I watched this movie, and afterwards, it was a genuinely scary movie. And this is, before I get into what the movie's about, I want to say, these directors now that are making these movies, like what do we have these ones coming out now? Like The Nun, and then the other ones, The Conjuring. I never have seen those movies, but they're just like, they don't appeal to me because it's just they rely too much on the jump scare factor, and they don't have, like, I can't say because I haven't seen them, but I've seen the commercials, and it's just enough to turn me completely off of watching them because of the ridiculous amount of just overused jump scares, and it doesn't have that feeling of like tension like a film like this does, or say like a film. There aren't a ton of movies that are like this, though, even from its day. Some movies that I would say that this are kind of similar to would be like the Amityville Horror. It's that type of horror where it doesn't rely on jump scares, but more a creepy atmosphere and that constant sense that you're being watched, or that there's something in the house, there's some paranormal activity, more so like real paranormal activity, if you believe in that. And same with The Shining, too, is kind of, it's not like The Shining, but it's that kind of more of that style of horror, psychological. Not even so much psychological, but it is a bit, this one. I don't know what I'm saying, but let's just get into the film itself. We basically start out with, we see this family. They're, I guess they're on like a ski hill type area. They're on like they're in a very snow-covered area, let's just say the least, and they're, I think their car's broken down. They're pushing their car along the side of the road, or they got stuck in a bed of snow. They're pushing it, and basically it's a dad, his wife, and then their daughter, who's, I'm just presuming, like 8, 9, 10 years old. Dad goes across the snowy, and it seems like they're in a very isolated area, but they're not. He goes over to this phone booth to make a phone call. And as he's making the phone call, the semi-truck is racing down the road, and there's also a police car coming from the opposite direction to try to block it off. So I guess some crazy guy stole this truck or something, or committed a crime. He's trying to get away, I assume. And police car goes out on the side of the road. Meanwhile, the dad notices, holy, crap, my daughter and wife are out there playing. And somehow they don't hear the semi-truck racing towards them. And they get hit and killed by the semi-truck. So a pretty tragic start to this film. Now after that, I can't remember exactly the order that it goes in, but we see this guy, and he's kind of just like, we're back in the city, presumably like New York or something, and he's just, going about his day-to-day life. He's a music composer, and he's obviously very distraught from this, as anybody would be if they just lost their wife and child. So he's, living his day-to-day life. He's going around. He goes to a few, kind of like dinner party get-togethers with these big groups of other, like, composers and stuff. And he's talking to this lady, and he's trying to figure out, he's got to find a place to rent. He'd like to rent a house, so they end up finding him. They get these people from the Historical Society, and they come and they find a house for him to rent out, and it's this ginormous mansion, and it ends up he's not the only one alone in the house, let's just say. Strange, he moves into this house. It's just this really beautiful, like, mansion, this Victorian style mansion. It's actually a set prop, the interior and the exterior. It's all a prop, which is really incredible, but it gives that true feeling of a Victorian house. And I live in an area where there are a lot of houses around that are well over 100 years old. And I've been inside of some of these houses before, and it's really captured the look of one of those houses, early, like 20th century, you know, 19th century, late 19th century, early 20th century. So, that being said, very good interior look and exterior of this big ass mansion. So strange things start happening, windows creak, doors are closing, all the stuff that expect from paranormal activity. But it's realistic stuff, right? Windows are breaking, glass and stuff. And if you're watching this video right now and you're going to continue watching, spoiler alert, I wouldn't go any further than this, because if you're thinking about watching this movie and you haven't seen it yet, don't watch this review, because it's going to give basically most of the film away. And believe me, I don't want to give it away what exactly it is. If you're interested in seeing this movie, definitely buy the movie and watch it, because you will be impressed if you're into those types of ghost movies, like those realistic ghost movies, like I said, Amityville Horror. So I just wanted to say that quickly before we continue here. If you're thinking about watching this movie, don't go past this part, so stop now, because you will. I am going to spoil the movie. So, weird stuff is happening in the house. He wakes up in the morning and he hears this bang, 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 like someone's hitting something with a hammer, super loud, and you can almost hear like a child's voice. So I'm not going to go through everything that happens, but basically, long story short, it ends up that there was a boy who lived in the house, a previous family from earlier. I would believe it was 1909 that the incident happened, and he was living. This boy was up in the attic. I don't know. It didn't explain that a ton about. I guess I didn't realize that at first, but I guess he was crippled from the legs down, or disabled from the legs down, so he didn't have function of his legs because he had a wheelchair up there. So we get these flashbacks, and this is later in the movie. A lot happens before this, but it's a lot of like bumps in the nights and weird sounds and stuff like that. But basically, what it ends up being is that this father indeed murdered his son up in the attic. He drowned him in a bathtub, killed the child. Very horrible. It's like really gruesome. It's not bloody or anything, but it's a horrific thing to see. Very disturbing the way that they do that. So he finds that out. He has like these flashbacks and stuff, because to get to the attic, he has to go through this. He goes up the stairs, because it's a really big house. And because he's hearing these voices and he's hearing water run, like the taps are filling up with water, the bathtub's running up with water. So he goes up there one day and he finds this door with a lock on it. So he hits the lock off. Basically, it breaks, and it leads up to the staircase that leads up to the attic. And it's just like filled with cobwebs, super creepy. And there's this wheelchair in there and whatnot. And it's just, it's really creepy. And there's other parts too, like there's this woman that he kind of gets involved with, not really in more of a relationship, but more of a friendship. And she's kind of coming over and spending time with him and whatnot. She gets interested in this case as well. They end up going over to this other lady's house because her daughter has seen an apparition of the same boy that he saw. One thing I forgot to mention is when he's in that bathroom and he looks into the bathtub, because it's filled with water, it's filling with water, and he sees a boy's face in the bathtub. And that's before we find out that the boy was indeed drowned. But anyways, they go over to this other house because this woman says that her daughter, she wakes up in the middle of the night and she goes out to the kitchen and she sees also a boy like in water coming up. It's really creepy, right? And it ends up that the boy is buried under there. They dig it up and find these bones, and it's just like, it's really creepy. The whole movie, it just has this like, you're constantly on edge. And it also ends up that there's like this senator, and apparently the main character, the father who's living in the house, he finds out that this senator is the other son of this man, of his father. Sorry if I'm making this confusing, but the boy who was murdered, basically the senator man is his brother. So of course even he is really old now. He's probably in his like 80s or 90s, because this happened like 50, 60 something years ago before the current time, which is like 1970s or late 70s, early 80s. So it ends up that this senator is the brother of the boy who was murdered, and the guy goes and confronts him and says, your father murdered your brother, but the senator doesn't want to believe it. So it's really weird, because like his dad murdered his son, because I guess he was disabled, which is not a reason to murder someone, obviously, at all. It's absolutely horrible. Kills his son, and then raises his other son very well, and he ends up being the senator, this senator, and super rich with this big mansion. So it's just like crazy, and the senator doesn't want to believe it, and there's just, I know I'm kind of going all over the place with this movie, but it's like there's so much that happens, and it's just like super creepy, but you're constantly on edge. It has that kind of feeling like when he's at the house, you're super creeped out, and then he leaves the house, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, he's out of there for a little while, going to a dinner party, but he's got to go back there after to sleep at night, and every time he goes back, there's just really creepy stuff happening. And one of the things that creeped me out the most in this film was there's a scene. He has this ball that was his daughter's ball that she liked to play with, a little red and white ball. And anyways, he's sitting in the living room one night, and it comes bouncing down the stairs. It's really creepy, and it keeps happening, keeps rolling down the stairs and whatnot. And he ends up, it just freaks him out too much. It's just stressing him out seeing that ball. So he takes it and he throws it off this bridge. He just wants to get rid of it. So then he throws it off the bridge, comes back home, opens the door, and there it is, the fucking ball coming down the stairs. It creeped me the hell out, man. And so that was super scary. And then there was also a scene where I really jumped where something broke. I'm not going to say what it was. Something breaks, and you kind of, that made me jump because it was kind of unexpected. It's a quiet scene, and then bang, something breaks. I'm not going to say what because I'll leave that for you to watch. But no, this is just a very creepy movie. It's very well made. You're definitely on edge. It's very scary. You don't see any monsters. You don't see any creepy frickin' things jumping out at you, but you see ghosts. And you just see a lot of strange stuff happening. And at the end, it's just crazy. Basically, the house just goes ablaze on fire, and I'm going to leave it at that. Definitely check this movie out if you're into paranormal ghost movies, and even if you're just into horror in general. It has a really great soundtrack, this classical music soundtrack. And now one quick fun fact that I'll say is that this film was partially filmed where I live in British Columbia, Canada. There are some scenes where it's filmed where I live. So it'd be really cool to visit some of these locations sometime if I ever get the chance. Now, these videos run longer than I want them to, so I'm going to try to get on with this. This is the Blu Ray here from Severin Films. It's very fantastic. You get this awesome slipcover. When we take it off, we have a black case. How did you die, Joseph? Did you die in the house? Why do you remain? And one more thing I'll talk about is there's a scene where they get like these priests, these spiritual people to come in and do this thing, and they basically talk to the ghost, like these people that go on and talk to ghosts. And this lady is just really creepy. She's just like staring into space, and she's asking questions, what is your name? Why do you remain here? Why do you live? And then she's like just scribbling on a piece of paper, and she's not even like looking in any of their eyes. She's just looking into the distance with tears in her eyes, and she's asked these questions, and then she just like scribbles it, like, how did your father kill you? And it's like, yes, it's just really creepy, right? You got to see it. It's insane. So that's where that catchphrase is kind of from. But anyways, we get a Blu-ray disc, and we get a CD soundtrack, which is awesome. I haven't listened to it like in a CD player yet, but I love the soundtrack, and it's classical music. I love it, and it's very great. We get audio commentary of the director. We get the house on Cheeseman Park, The Haunting True Story, and I watched that. It was really interesting about this Cheeseman Park, where all these people are buried. I can't remember exactly where it is in the United States, but there's some really weird paranormal stuff that happens around that park, and that's there was a house where a lot of this stuff actually did happen with the bouncing ball. That's all true. It's pretty freaky, so definitely recommend checking that feature out. We get the music of The Changeling, an interview with the music arranger Kenneth Wanberg. Building the House of Horror interview with art director. That was also very cool too. They talk about how they built the set, both interior and exterior. We get the Psychotronic Tourist, The Changeling, whatever that is, Master of Horror on The Changeling, poster and still gallery, radio spots and TV spots, and a trailer. So utterly hair-raising. It contains the best scene in horror movies history. I can't say that word there. Maybe my grammar is not that great. A great horror film. And Martin Scorsese said it was one of the scariest movies. So, hey, if you're into paranormal movies, or like I said, if you're just into horror movies, then you gotta watch The Changeling. It had me on edge. It is definitely scary, and the music really adds to that effect. And there also is a scene where this wheelchair starts chasing the lady around in the house. It's crazy. But no, this is definitely one of the scariest movies I have seen as far as paranormal movies go. I would say that this is probably the second scariest ghost movie I have ever watched. I think The Shining is still a little bit scarier because I think the atmosphere is just a little bit more creepier, but this almost keeps you on edge even more. So definitely, I highly recommend this movie. I really did enjoy it. 2 thumbs up for The Changeling. Yeah, definitely check it out. If you've seen this movie, let me know what you think about it, and if you have any questions or what else, just let me know down in the comments. But that is the 1980 film, The Changeling. Definitely glad that I finally watched that. So that's all for this review, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.